I would like to address the question of ethics when we consider Kant and his revolution. In fact, in my opinion, the last frontal attack that finished with religion was launched or initiated by Kant himself, even though we think of him as a religious person. But what Kant did really is that he considered ethics, or the origin and source of ethics, as a human rational decision. Thinks that we want to make universal, the human formula that he came up with, and all of this approach actually to ethics and values made the source and origin of ethics human, rational, and down to earth. God has nothing to do with it. God was not the one making a decision of what is good or bad. So even though Nietzsche considered himself as really the last kind of one who completely destroyed religion and Christianity and values and stuff like that, in reality Kant now did that before him. Kant, from his own way, or the way he thought of the issue, really destroyed religion by making the decision of values and ethics and codes of value originating within human beings, people basically thinking and making a decision of what is good and what is bad based on whether they can make it universal or not. It doesn't matter, those are details, but still, the whole point here is that a human being, is the one who makes the decision. And even when later on Habermas take it to this kind of idea of consensus, which I think it's a stretch. Habermas is probably thinking about a post-World War II where people kind of get to the UN and make some decision, and he wanted to really transpose that idea to ethics. That's not true. If you go back, you don't find people sitting down and making decision about what is good and what is bad. Now, if you go back to history, there is no such a thing as good or bad based on a consensus. What we have in the past was the impression or the attitude that there is a godly decision being made up high, telling us what is good and what is bad. Now came Kant and then destroyed that, and he said, no, it's not coming from there, it's coming from down here. We humans make this decision. And even the other one about the universal, we can see from the critique of Hegel to the morals or ethic of Kant that even that universal idea is really not very, doesn't make any sense. So we look at Kant not from the detail of his theory. When we look at Kant, we should look at Kant from the point of him making the source of ethics human and rational. That is what is important. Now, as far as I am concerned, when I look at ethics, I don't think issue of ethics is something moral. When you look, for example, at the Ten Commandments, it's really not something really rational. Honor your father and mother. What's rational about that? It's not something rational. It's probably ethical or whatever we will discuss. Or do not covet, your neighbor's wife or ox or whatever land or stuff like that. That's really nothing rational there. We need to look somewhere else if we want to justify or explain ethics. And even when we come to Islam, some of the decision has no rational reasoning behind them. It's the impression that Muhammad had at that time of what is good and what is right, plus whoever helped write the Quran and the holy text and all of that stuff. So I'm not gonna go into that detail again, or not now at least, but I would like to say that what drives ethics And moral codes is not any form of rational reasoning. My impression and belief is that we do have instincts that drive us. And we as human being, we thought at a certain point that we cannot act on our instincts like that. We needed to make them kind of reasonable and rational. So the idea really is to justify what we are going to do anyway. But we didn't want to look like animals or beasts when we do those things. So we needed to come up with some story, some justification for that natural behavior or the behavior of any primate. Now, here I need to look at what is really exactly the driver or what is the instinct of a primate. In general, I'm gonna stick to a primate, but I will go down also to other animals because that's where everything is coming from. It's not coming from God, it's not coming from a rational reasoning, it's coming from somewhere inside us. And inside us, that means instincts. My impression is that there are three things that make or drive our instinct. Territory. Any animal needs some territory where he can work. So we can explain by territory anything that is related to land, to properties, to houses even. That's all fall under a territory. Second thing should be mating. We can use that to explain any kind of sexual code of conducts. And probably what we should have, what we should protect in terms of sexuality, the female that should be, I mean, I use female here because I'm talking about primates here acting. So you need to protect your mate, have a territory where you are safe, and you should keep out other male from going to your mate. Now, I'm talking about from a man's perspective. The third one will be objects, but I do not want to use the word object in general because even for the primate to use some tools, some sticks to get worms, to get something like that, they don't own them and they don't really protect them. And they don't keep them in a safe place that they can use them later. So a monkey will, or whatever chimp, will get another kind of stick to look for worms every time he needs to look for worms or whatever he's gonna eat or use that thing. So he doesn't use that object. That object is not associated in his mind of something that he can protect and keep in a safe or keep in a safe place that he can use it again. So we cannot talk about object, external object. What I mean by object is food. A primate will get his banana and he protects it, or a monkey. I don't know, whatever, and a chimp eat other animals too, and they are actually ruthless, and they do go for that prey and eat it. That's the object that I am talking about here. The object I'm talking about is something related to food. So here we have three parts of what makes our code of values: territory, sexuality, and food. Again, everything else should come from related to these three. I can make them under a bigger umbrella and call it like survival, but survival is a very big word. Survival can encompass the three of them or something like that. So I will talk about these three, and these are the three that I would like to emphasize as the source and origin of our values and codes of conducts. Anything that in the past used to create or form what we call a code of conduct or laws or anything like that It's one way or another to protect these three drivers of our values. Now, one question comes to mind is that when you form values based on these three drivers, you may think of expressing this either in a positive way, do this, or in a negative way, do not do this. I'm talking here about the apophatic theology or negative theology, basically. Monotheism are quite often apophatic in a way that their code of values is based on what not to do rather than what to do. So if you look at the codes, you will see more forbidden things, things that you should not do, taboo things. And this apophatic approach to values and codes of values and codes of conduct is something that needs to be researched. Why should humans, when they form their codes of values, think more about what others shouldn't do rather than to talk about what others and themselves should do? If you take, I mean, even the Ten Commandments, the 613 mitzvot after that, and also for Islam, you will see a lot of negative kind of orders and commandments, not to do this, not to do that, not to go there, not to go here, not to whatever. And you wonder, why is that? I'm gonna make a guess. I don't think when people think of values, they think about the positive approach or value, or actually I don't think they will prefer to be like positive people. They actually are afraid of their own instincts, and they want to defend themselves from their own instincts. It's like any human being at any point in time is afraid of reverting to the primate state of where he thinks, where he was thinking, and where he will be in general if he's left on his own. Therefore, the main driver when they write codes of laws is usually not to go there. In other words, not to do this or that, rather than to be like a charitable person or do, well, I don't know, something like that. A human being is mostly afraid of reverting to his state of a primate. So, and that is what drives him when he writes any code of law. Now, when we also think about ethics in this way, we do need to understand that the idea of an afterlife was not always there in the mind of people. The corporal punishment was more valid as a response to problems emerging from not following the rules, not following any kind of code of law. Therefore, humans will probably expand on corporal punishment rather than looking for other options. I believe that states or forms of government that were strong enough to apply some kind of corporal punishment will go for this option rather than using an afterlife as a response, because the afterlife is basically a form of corporal punishment that is taking place somewhere else. So literally, if you fail to build a big strong jail, a big strong army or police or guards who can collect and get people and punish them, therefore it is not a bad idea if you can create a hell somewhere else to punish those people who you wouldn't or couldn't punish them down here because of your system was not strong enough. So we look here at the code of values also associated with the form of state that is active and present at that time. So if you have a good, strong system working and functioning well, you don't need afterlife to punish people. You will do the job down here. You will build your jail or prison somewhere. You will have your own guards who can get people who don't follow the rules, and then you can punish them down here. And the punishment also will be corporal. That is important. You need to do something in the body because that's where everything should go. There is no other thing. Now, once that thing fails, once your system fails to protect this whole approach, then you create an afterlife. For the afterlife, you need some other ingredients. You need a soul, first of all, and that's important. You need to create this idea of a soul or something inside that you can punish later, because it doesn't make sense if you have an afterlife for somebody who is, dying very old, the body is really already decaying, is gone, there is nothing to do there. So you need to create a component of that person that you can punish later on. And later on, that will be hell. Hell is important there to use this retribution in a different form. So, a failed state or a state that is not formed yet or about to be formed will benefit a lot from an afterlife, and will benefit also a lot from the idea of a soul or spirit or something inside you that he can punish later, or reward actually. But reward is not as clear as I think what drove more and mostly the idea of afterlife is the punishment. The reward was not really very clear, and it's even in Islam where everything is depicted clearly. Heaven is not exactly obvious. It's true, we hear about women and wine and stuff like that, but even Muhammad, the Prophet of Islam, said that what I prepared for my people, or God actually, according to him, God said, what I prepared for my people is something that they didn't see, that they didn't taste, that they didn't know. It's something else. So, which makes sense. But that happens for heaven. As far as hell is concerned, we have clear depiction of what's the status is gonna be there. And those people who are going to hell will be punished for sure in forms, and it's the word that are used for the punishment. It's basically the word that are used for a jail down to earth. It has guards, it has custodians, it has fire and forms of torture and stuff like that. You think that whoever created that idea took the idea of a jail from down here, earth, and put it up there. So, I do understand that. It works. It works when you have a state that is being formed, being created. then you probably, once you fail to make it down here, you take it up there, put it there, and take care of it. So, this is my first take on values and codes of values and the idea of heaven and hell. I would like to discuss later the idea of a monotheism. I think monotheism is the worst and not the worst, but the peak of what we can use or call a dictatorship. And down from the first monotheist, Akhenaton, and all the way down to the latest prophets that show up, any one of them who is monotheist is really a dictator one way or another. But we'll talk about that in a different recording.